Shalom. All praises to Yahweh, Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai, Ba'Shem Rakakadash. The bonus the apostles and elders of Great Millstone of Roll Wild, Shalom to the brothers doing the work, sharing truth. Yeah, just got this article for on Reuters from talking about Australia. It's kind of wild because Australia's been getting it in still because they started lockdowns in Europe up again, like I think last month in June, and as well they in June, and same thing for what do you call it, in Australia as well. But these guys have just been getting dealing with a different kind of scale of it. So I read it says Sydney readies for the army as lockdown fails to squash Delta outbreak. Yeah. So these men are bringing in the army again, and it's funny like what they're going to be doing. So it says Sydney's poorest neighborhoods on Friday braced for military enforcement of the city's toughest and longest lockdown of the pandemic, as the infection numbers held persistently high 5 weeks since restriction began. And I think the numbers, I believe they say them. Oh no, they just say for that particular state. Yeah. Oh wait, hold on. Was that it? Yeah. 34,000 cases. So yeah, it's like I think the UK has like 250,000 or something. So yeah, it's kind of hilarious that they're in over here is like in the worst case, and shit's been opened up, but these men are having it increased in intensity. It's kind of wild, man. But well, so okay, says the longest in 5. Okay, so with a sea of 5 million people ordered to stay home amid an outbreak of the highly transmissible Delta variant, authorities outlined even tighter restrictions for the worst affected suburbs, including mandatory testing and mask wearing outdoors. From Monday, some 300 Australian Army personnel will help police door knock people who have tested positive to the V to ensure they are isolating. So men are gonna be knocking on the door, making sure you're home with the police and the military. And then I'm wondering, okay, so what does that mean if you're caught outside? They're gonna have to grab you up and return you home. Like, what's going on? It says New South Wales Police Commissioner Mick Fuller said at a televised news conference, the sheer volume of increase over the last week means the level of compliance enforcement has gone from hundreds into thousands. I don't know what that means. Well, okay. The amped up military and police presence would cover the breadth of Australia's largest city, but mainly 8 local government districts in the city west, home to 2 million people, where most new cases have been reported. It says, well, as the city entered its 6th week of a planned 9-week lockdown, New South Wales state reported 170 new cases, most in the state capital Sydney, from a record 239 a day earlier. After new cases. So I think what do you call it? In Australia, I think these guys have actually had like the lockdown in place for the longest. And it was meant to be like bigging up, well, they're bigging up saying like, oh yeah, they got everything under wraps, to where people weren't even, you know, having to wear masks outdoors. No, it's the opposite. So it's yeah, it's kind of funny. It's kind of funny still, cause okay, like these men are having it on an intensity that's no one else is really dealing with at the minute, and it's not even on a like the cases aren't even on the same kind of scale as like what's happened in the US or in the States. So this is what while new cases fell, State Premier Gladys Berejiklian said a high number of infectious people in the community meant we are expecting to see those numbers bounce around. At the same news conference, State Health Minister Brad Hazard said people were waiting too long to get tested after developing symptoms, and that we are seeing more families coming in with a family member who is presenting not alive but dead. Who is presenting not alive? I don't know what I think. Well, I don't know if that actually means. It's a fucking advert. Oh.
Cases continued to rise 3 weeks into a city-wide lockdown. The Australian city on Saturday ordered a shutdown of building sites, banned non-essential retail, and threatened fines for employers who make staff come into the office. Authorities in New South Wales state, of which Sydney is the capital, also banned hundreds of thousands of people in the city's western suburbs, the worst affected area, from leaving their immediate neighbourhoods for work. It came as they reported 111 new cases in the previous 24 hours, up from 97 the day before. The state also recorded an additional death, bringing its total to 3 since the start of the year, and 913 nationally since the pandemic began.
Yeah, it's kind of wild, bruv. It's actually wild. Like, men said they had like what 35,000 cases, and what 93. So yeah, no, of 913 deaths. I think it was. Yeah. Like, it's actually wild that that can be used to then justify locking down everything. But that's yeah. It's the reason why is well. I'll skip there. It says well, until recently, Australia had handled the sea crisis much better than many other developed countries, with just over 34,000 cases and less than 1,000 dead. But that standing has been shaken by a sluggish immunization program that has left just 18% of people aged over 16 fully vaccinated. Yeah. Which is kind of hilarious. Because in the UK, even including people under 16, is 70%, or something like that. So it's like that's the reason why it's they ain't jumped like people ain't been pushed on to taking a max, and that's that's the main objective. That's the main goal, getting people on on that, because that's why it's for them it's intensifying. Other people it's like in the UK it's like people have been taking up saying oh you can have they're dangling a few little freedoms for the time being, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, okay, let me read this. 2nd Ezra 15 and 14 says, woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. Yeah, these things are going to come down to clashes, to war, because why? It's going to intensify from just this little scourge here to you're going to have famine, you can have there ain't going to be water available, there's going to be restrictions on further things. You're going to have like worse things come down to where the illusion of everything's going fine, that isn't going to stand. And then it's going to come down, and that's the thing, is once it comes down to the wire, people it's gonna get more real. Because as it is presently, people can kind of go around. They can pretend everything, everything's all good. They can go to the club. They can have, have a good time, chill. They're thinking, oh, you just get jabbed, and you're good. Everything goes back to normal, but not so. There's, things are gonna intensify further, and it's people have really been prepped for that in their minds already. Cause why? Cause they've had what do you call it? It's throughout the whole course of the lockdown. It's been like saying, oh, we're not gonna go to this level, then they go to that level. Oh, we're not gonna do it, and then they go to it. So it's like they just kind of throw out ideas out there, like, oh, we're kind of looking at it, but we're not really looking to to do it. So as and as that's the thing is this, the intensity of this, the response to this thing going around has been set. So it's like, okay, if something worse comes, then they're like, okay, we can push it further, and that's that's what you're gonna have. But then the pushback is gonna get harder as well. That's why, like I did the video a bit earlier about like Costa basically saying you need to show your passport to go in, and people are like, oh fuck it, boycott it. But that it's gonna get more real. So this is what for there shall be sedition among men and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. Yeah, it's basically going to come down to their authority figures. They're going to hold no regard for them. They're going to be looking at them like, oh, well, fuck you. I'm looking to do whatever the fuck I'm looking to do. And what do you call it? They're just going to be off like, fuck this, and try and go off the grid. Because as well, there's a lot of people they're just like, fuck this shit already, and they just needed to hit a certain point. That's why you have the whole movement. I don't even know how I'd classify it, of like preppers and whatnot, guys that are basically waiting for shit to get wild, and their whole thing is they're meant to be ready for it to pop off. But it says, what a man should desire to go into a city and should not be able. Yeah. It's like what I just read in Sydney, where they said, was it New South Wales, I think it was, where, oh no, maybe it was a different one of the other states, I don't know. But they said like they're not allowed to leave their local, just outside of their like borough, I guess, in the city, to go to work in a different area. So those, and that's something that the UK was in. Most countries are doing that anyway. So these things have been seen, and it's this is before you've had large scale conflicts go off. Before you've had hints that it could be like, okay, there might be a famine coming, but not to the intensity where it's like, okay, yeah, that shit's gonna pop off. But yeah. So this is what, for because of their pride the city shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and great tribulation. Yeah, it's gonna come down to warfare. People basically just move into violence. Because why? Because of lack of bread, that hunger, that starvation. Especially people with families and whatnot, they're just gonna be like, yo, fuck this. I need, my peeps need to eat. All that shit. That's once push comes to shove, it's gonna pop off, man. People are gonna be losing it. You're gonna be going back wild, and you've seen small bits of it, but it's gonna be on an intense scale. Because hey, this shit's gonna get even more real. Yeah. But yeah, I'll leave it there for the minute. Shalom. All praises to Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahushua, by Hashem, Kadash. Double see Apostle and Elders, Great Millstone. And Shalom to all the hopeful elect, man. And then his words to certain truth. Shalom, shalom.